Yes, team. Welcome to another episode of the Jake O'Connor, the High Functioning Addiction podcast. Today, I've got a friend and a client of mine, Harry, on the show today. Harry hit his 1 year sobriety mark. I believe it was today or over the next couple of days. So I wanted to get him to jump on, really, to share some insights, to share some wisdom on how he achieved it and just how you can too. So Harry, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thank you very much. Yeah, really, real pleasure to be here with you. Really
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, it's good. So for the people that don't know you, can you just explain a little bit about kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So I describe myself as someone who's kind, who's resilient, happy, calm, relaxed. I love to learn. So I do describe myself as an educator, but also at the same time an apprentice because we're always learning. And really privileged that sort of has allowed me to do something where I'm able to help people, which is another thing that's really important to me, and also serve people, which I believe is very, very important. So I do that through two companies. I've founded two companies, one in the UK, which is nearly 13 years in operation, and then one in the UAE, which is two years. And I'm also a director of education for another company. They're all around coaching. My training is education. So I'm a trained teacher, I'm a trained coach in multiple things, and also a trained mentor as well. So yeah, I've got a clear mission, what I want to do, and I'm privileged to get up every morning with energy and enthusiasm to try and drive that forward each day.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing I've noticed with working with you is that you are very positive. There's never a bad day in Harry's world. It's always positive energy and trying to bring yourself up when times are down and stuff. So yeah, it definitely shows, mate. It definitely
Thank you.
shows. So congrats on the 1 year of sobriety. Is that today or is that over the next couple of days
It was
or
yesterday.
yesterday?
Yesterday,
Cool.
yeah. So
Nice,
into the
nice.
next year,
Yeah.
year
So
two.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to ask really. Like, what's your plans now? Are you going to kind of continue this or is it just 1 year?
Yeah, 100% continue it. So I'm never going to say never again because I believe potentially you might be setting yourself up to fail that. But I know for the foreseeable future, I have clear sort of goals over 3, 5, 10 years, and until I hit those, really, then it's not really in the equation for me. So
Cool.
yeah.
Nice. Love that. Well, we'll talk about the benefits and everything that you've discovered over this past 366 days now. But let's rewind. Let's go back to where it all began. So, I mean, how long has alcohol been a part of your life for now?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of I'd just say one of the most important things I think, and one of the reasons I've done it, which we'll come on to, is bringing more awareness into my life, which was really, really important because of certain things. And having done that, I've managed to actually, over the last few years, actually go back and start to analyze and work through what my journey, when did it start? Why did it start? Etc. So I could say it pretty much started around 16 years of age, and it was alongside quite a difficult situation as a 16-year-old. When I did the timeline, obviously there was a certain situation that was difficult, and I managed to trace back that's where it sort of came into the equation around 16. And I think, and again, I reflect on this, I think for a lot of people in the UK, certainly myself, and I know some of my friends as well, we're not educated around alcohol at all. We have no education. I think of people in other countries, like France, for example, they will educate children more around it, that, a safe way to do it is more of a cultural, social thing with food, etc., pairing it with food. Whereas we had none of that. We were just, it was almost like, right, you don't do this until you're 18, right? So of course, as a young, as a young man or a 16-year-old, we do, especially with challenge, we'll often rebel a little bit, won't we? And we'll think, right, well, if you're telling me I can't do this, well, I'm going to do it, So, but with no education at all, and I think that's a big issue because straight away it was binge drinking. And I think that was a big and has been a big challenge with me with alcohols from that. So pretty much I'd say I probably did from 16 most weekends, probably till about when I was 29, because that's when I'd say that I'd realised it was possibly I was losing control with certain elements of it, and I had to sort of look at that and take some steps.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I mean, I rewind to when I was 16. I was pretty sure I had a fake ID going clubbing at like 16, 17. There's definitely not the awareness. And obviously, I know that probably most of this conversation is going to circle back to education because that's your background, right? So is there education on alcohol nowadays in schools and stuff, or is it still a bit of a kind of grey area?
I think whether or not there is in schools, but I seen a stat actually yesterday, and it said that it was something to do with there's never been less. I think it's teenagers now actually going to drink and drugs.
I think that
Yeah,
was on your story, right?
yeah.
On your Instagram.
So whatever is happening, it's really, really good because I think now younger people are making informed decisions and saying, I'm not interested. It's not going to serve me. It's not going to help me towards what I want to do. And I think that's for me really, really uplifting to see that. Yeah, I don't know exactly. I think one of the things, and obviously social media will play a part because I think when you start to go on this journey yourself, like, and you follow certain people, there is a lot of people now, and have been for a long time, like banging the drum about the real facts. I think that's important, the real facts now around alcohol, and how detrimental it is. I think anyone who is exposed to the actual real facts about it now, it'd be difficult to go against that, really. I've seen one that they compared it to smoking, and how sort of well known it is now that smoking is obviously just horrendous. It's horrendous, But honestly, alcohol's right up there with that. But it's just how they're portrayed, in society now. One is like, they're putting the visual effects of what it does to your body on the box of a cigarette. Well, I tell you what, if you checked what alcohol does to you as well, I think if we were seeing that on the bottles of wine and champagne or beer or whatever, might be different, but I think it's only going that way, to be honest. And I think it will still take time, but I believe in 20, 25 years, I think we'll be looking at a different demographic with that. And I think it will be much more limited because people will just know the clear facts about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a big health and well-being trend now. I think it's like the trendy thing to be sober. Obviously, you've got Whoop and you've got all these other kind of recovery devices and all of this. And I mean, that promotes healthy living, right? Which is fantastic. I hear you about the alcohol, and it's really difficult because from a young age, you watch telly, right? And on TV, you see the Corona advert, you see the Foster's advert of people having a good time on the beach, or you see all of these kind of adverts like whiskey for you to look suave and stuff like this. And you build this mental association or image to alcohol before you've even drank it. Like, you see alcohol as the cool thing to do. As I can't look cool at a social event, so I need to buy, I can't even remember what advert it was, but it was a particular whiskey or something. Like, I need to buy that so I can look like that guy. Or you've got like bloody Brad Pitt or something being the face of like some rum, and like, oh, I need to buy that because I want to be him. And there's just this marketing and social conditioning throughout your whole life to put the power into alcohol's hands, basically. And it also doesn't help that it's legal as well. So again, it can sometimes be even more detrimental than drugs, because drugs should be harder to get. Some places they're not, but they should be. Alcohol, obviously not in Dubai, but you can walk around my corner shop, which is throw a stone, and you can buy as much beer as you want. So it's sometimes harder because it's more socially acceptable. And then we can get onto another conversation about the UK culture. As you know, the pub, the drinking culture, the party culture, you get seen as boring if you don't drink or if you don't go out and go to the pub and get shit faced. So yeah, it's a real challenge what people are facing at the moment.
So no, you're exactly right on that. I'd use the word that it's glamorized. It's still glamorized, I mean, Brad Pitt's an interesting one because I know he's purely sober for a long
That was
time.
just an example.
No example, but who has recently? David Beckham. David
Okay.
Beckham has recently put his, to whiskey and stuff
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
look at Conor McGregor. I mean, he
Yeah,
runs his own whiskey, doesn't he?
yeah. He sold. Well, yeah, I think he sold it, but yeah, he created it, but it's yeah, it's a real challenge. But then I'd say as well that we always go back to the awareness, right? And some would say, I don't know this as factual, but I like to discuss with friends who are on a similar path. And let's talk about the UK and the government. Do the government potentially, they make, oh, we already know they make a lot of money off alcohol, so there's that. Because if you want to check how much money through alcohol related illnesses or conditions, how much that costs the NHS, which is the government are obviously paying for, but the government are obviously making a lot of money. But the second thing is when I say, I'd ask the question, how much do the government want you to be aware? How much do they want their general population to be very aware and looking actually, what are these people at the top doing? Do you get what I mean? Like, because they don't really want you to do that because they want to keep you down, they want to suppress you. So you don't raise that level of awareness. So you don't look at things and go, hang on, this is not right. This is really not, this is not right. We don't need to go into particular examples, but there is there's an argument to be said that that those off licenses, they're on every corner, especially where there's deprivation as well. That it's there. You could ask that question, and it's so freely available. It's promoted. The industry and how much money goes into the promotion and marketing of it is frightening. If you look at it, it's ridiculous. And that's what they do. They promote and market things. So whether it's good or bad, they know how to get it into the psyche, don't they? They know how to. And the oddest thing is, when you go on this journey is, you're often the odd one, or, the one that people question. I find that really, really interesting. And I think especially initially, we'd probably come onto it, but, I think you do have to have strong willpower and have strong character. But I'd say as well, we have to get this into the conversation, is the quote that, you will have heard is, if your why is strong enough, then the how becomes easy, right? Or easier, because I don't like that, because, we then say, oh, well, if I've got a strong why, this is easy. I don't think it's that, but I think it becomes easier when the reason that you're not drinking is strong, and you can articulate that and share that with people, then people question you less.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been sober for 2.5 years now, and I see my progression or my sobriety. One of the main reasons, obviously minus the emotional stuff and all of that, is what I do for work. Like, I am an addiction coach. So my why has always been bigger than my how, like you just said. So purpose and meaning is massively correlated between addiction and not, I believe, because I could not dream of going out tomorrow and getting off my face and then showing up to my clients and not practicing what I preach. So yeah, I completely hear you on that one. And it's probably the same for you as well, right? Like, you're very mission driven. You teach kids and stuff, and you want to show up to the best of your ability. And we'll go on later in the conversation about the impact that sobriety has now had on you, but I'm sure you're seeing a lot more benefits in personal life, in professional life, and financially as well, right?
Massively. Yeah, massively. And just touching on your exact point about, it doesn't add any value or contribute to what you're doing and you do as a job, And yeah, I mean, one of the companies, the UAE company, is called High Performance Global. So in essence, what we do is we try and help some kids, but also adults, achieve their own high performance. So what we do is we will always leverage 4 pillars to me for high performance. So your 4 pillars are mindset, or I call it mind flow, because mindset is implying that the mindset is fixed, and I believe it's not. It's more, so I call
Yeah, I
it
like
mind
that.
flow. The second one is moving your body, right, and training, or walking, but moving the body, very important. The third one is fueling your body, so nutrition, what we're eating, what we're drinking. The fourth one is recovery, right? So when somebody comes to me and says, right, I want to optimize my performance, often people think you add things. Yeah. Or what do we add? Where do we need to add? What are we going to leverage? Are we going to get a whoop? And I'll ask a direct question. What do we need to take away? Yeah. That's a direct question. And there's one thing I'm very honest with. If you want to achieve high performance, yeah, then for me, I don't think you should be, alcohol. If why don't you try taking something away? Because I believe by taking that one thing away, what you can achieve is astronomical. It's ridiculous. We've not added one thing. We've taken one thing away. I mean, the stats around, obviously in that, with elite athletes I've had to work with in the past, and we'd say moderate drinking, moderate, now and again, moderate. It will reduce your performance by 8 to 10%. Elite athlete, international, that you can't do that, because you cannot afford to drop 8 to 10%. You can't. So, but me as a business owner, what you're just saying there, one of my, and I speak to a lot of business owners, and you can look at stats, but being a small business owner, the chances of having mental health issues rockets up, right? You can check that. And that's because there's a lot of pressure on you. It can be a lonely place. You're trying to juggle a lot of different things. So, but what often happens, and I was guilty of this, is there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure. So you use alcohol to numb that, right? And it does. And you taught me this actually. One of the most important things I learned when I was looking at it is the phrase that when somebody's potentially addicted to alcohol or drugs, they're not actually the issue. They're the solution at that time. Because what's deeper in, and this is so important that I learned, was it's something more internal and deep, that they're using the alcohol or the drugs is actually helping them suppress that or forget about that or alleviate that. And that's why for me, it was the inner work that was vital for me to do, the root cause, and then now when I reflect back, just the small business, I was having real challenges, Friday night I'd be right, let's open a bottle of wine, let's have a few beers or whatever, because, for that night I can just forget all of that, right? But the trouble is, there it is in the morning, isn't it? There it is, and guess what? You've got an absolute stinking hangover as well.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
and it's horrible. But business owner, a close friend of mine is a business owner, and he was saying, look, I really struggle. And I said a direct question back to him, but because he says, I've got staff and we have to pay. And I said, but can you ask yourself the question, does that directly help anyone really, other than you in that very short term moment? Does it? Can you answer me that? And he said, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So I said, well, we need to try and look at doing something there then, because ultimately, it's not, but it's not easy for people because, like we said, it's glamorized, it's in society, isn't it? And it does, listen, it does a job for people. It does a job, doesn't it? So,
Well, the question to ask whenever someone comes to you like that is, what does this substance give you? Or what does it do for you? And getting really clear on, oh, I don't know, like, yeah, you do. Like, what does it do for you? Okay, or if they say they don't know, what does it take away from you? Okay, it takes away my anxiousness. Okay, cool. Well, that's the root cause of it. Like the quote that Harry was just talking about is, the addiction isn't the problem; it's a solution to the problem. The problem itself is actually the discomfort one is trying to avoid. That's the problem. And it can be something, and I say small because nothing is small to the individual, but there's no other way that I can describe it really, is that it could be a comment that someone said to you in school. It could be, like for me, for example, mine was my breakup back in the past, right? To someone that may be small. But trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. It's your response to it. So a breakup for me might not be the same for you, and vice versa, right? So everyone has different trauma, big T, little t, and also everyone has different coping mechanisms for these. I see it a lot with business owners and entrepreneurs. They're the main people that I tend to work with, and there's stress, there's ADHD, which is also put into the mix. And then obviously you've got the trauma as well. So yeah, it's massively, oh, and also as a reward, I've had a good week. Let's go get pissed on a Friday night. I mean, I used to work in recruitment, and every quarter, if you hit your target, you get celebrated and you get taken out and unlimited drinks, and you can just get shit faced.
but it makes me like that. When I like to describe it as, let's reward ourselves by going and poisoning ourselves. That's what you're doing. This is, but I'm saying it like it's not easy because it's ingrained that sports people as well. Let's go and drink. We've done all this great work. We've achieved, and we're going to go and drink. But again, there's a lot of sports people now that are not. Even they'll be drinking non-alcoholic champagne. When the champagne comes out. And a lot of sports people now are literally just going nowhere near it because they literally can't. They can't because they just go back to even if you're losing 2 or 3%, then you're trying to be an elite sports person. You've got no chance.
Yeah.
You've got no chance.
I think the awareness is much higher as well. There's science and data that's backing it now. And then you've got social media, which is also promoting it. So it's a good thing. But this isn't to say that anyone that drinks is necessarily bad. It's just how you use it, right? And that's...
And I should have said earlier on, this is really important because I am quite a strong character and I can be quite direct in how I talk. Number one is I only talk about my own experience. I'm not actually, I'm not actually qualified in this department, so I'll talk about my own experience. And I don't want to seem like I preach to anyone because that's not what it's about. I lead by my actions. And I have had multiple people come to me and say, well done. I'd call them sober curious, that type of thing, and ask me. But it's down to the individual. Look, for some people, moderation will work and they can have the odd, that works for them. Fine. And look, it depends on your lifestyle. Andy Ramage is a big one, isn't he? I don't know where you've seen him online. And he calls there's one thing he talks about, which I find super interesting, is he calls the middle lane drinkers, right? So what his opinion is, if you hardly drink anything, that's in moderation is not bad. But your other end of the spectrum, the people who've got a serious problem, people are aware of them, so potentially they will get help, and they will get resources channeled into them because they're a problem. But there's these middle laners who are the ones that are probably high functioning, they've got good jobs, and it's them. They come back and they open a bottle of wine or a beer or whatever. Maybe they have 2 or 3 a night, but they probably do that 5 nights a week. Or he's sort of saying, that is a problem. Although we don't see that, and even if you checked out, I've not looked at the guidelines in the UK of how much you could or safely drink, but I think they might still say that maybe, as a man, you could have 2 drinks. I don't know, 2 or 3 drinks. I don't know, but because I don't. But, actually they say it's 2 drinks, right? 2 beers, that's for example. But if you have 2 beers every night, that's 14 beers a week, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's
You tell me
14.
that's not going to significantly reduce someone's and because the thing I'm super interested in my work as well is, your cognition, how the brain works. And one of my issues with it was that I can now reflect back on, I couldn't learn anything. I couldn't retain anything. Like I was trying to, I've done multiple. And because I said earlier, like I'm someone who loves learning, and I went through a period when I was drinking weekend to weekend, not huge amounts, but I was drinking weekend to weekend. And I was finding it super difficult to retain information, and that's because your neural chemistry or whatever it does obliterate that. It
Yeah,
just
well,
eats it up completely.
the recommended guideline is 6 pints per week,
Right, 6. Okay, that's less than
14
6 pints.
units.
Yeah,
Yeah, but even
that's not
still,
as bad. That's not as bad as that. So
but 6 pints a week, that's what? That's a night out on a Saturday.
easily, and some people will say, well, actually, I've got 6, so I'm going to have the 6 on the Saturday.
Mm.
Won't they? Like the binge drink. Oh, well, the government says I can have 6, so I'll just cram my 6 in. I mean, there is people now that are coming out directly and saying that no, that you shouldn't have any.
Yeah,
But again, look, it's how you use it, and everyone. That's another thing that I should say is everyone's unique, everyone's individual. So like. I used to think, I can do it and everyone will do like I do because that's a load of rubbish. They don't, some people look and go, okay, but they see by your actions and then they see about, you talked earlier, the progress you're making in your life. That's when people take notice because they're like, oh, wow, look, he's doing well. He's very healthy for his age and, his businesses are going well. And, he seems like he's in a really good spot. That's when people will start, oh, how are you doing that? They do ask, and it's, well, again, I took something away for a start. And then obviously everything else, your fitness, your health and fitness and stuff like that, just goes through the roof.
and also your sleep quality as well. Like I see sleep as like the number one hack. Like forget all the supplements, forget all the I don't know, hacks and stuff. Get your 9 hours or 7 to 9 hours. And the alcohol massively affects your sleep and all of that. So yeah, I mean, it's a big hindrance to performance. And I just want to be clear, like this is about optimizing performance, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's it.
if we want to be optimal performers, then yeah, I think cutting out alcohol is a big thing. Even if someone does it that's listening, that does it for 3 months and they reassess after 3 months and see what was the progress that was made, I can almost guarantee that there will be a lot more progress than not.
Oh, 100%. And I did that. So I've toyed and done it over quite a long period of time now. So I've obviously just done a full year, literally nothing. But the year before, I probably drank 5 times, possibly. And what I found then, and I was constantly analysing, and two of those 5 were just 1 or 2 drinks. And to be completely honest, the next day I felt all right. I felt fine. I got on with what I was doing. It didn't seem to impact me. But the other times I binge drank, and it was just shocking. like, and I think the longer you do, and then you get into a more healthy place, and it almost hits you harder because you've obviously not had it, and then, you are putting a poison into your body. But the other thing I think, what I find is, like when I was thinking when I was drinking weekend to weekend, that's your baseline of how you think you should feel, and I think that's quite sad, I think, in a way that there's still people there that they think that's your baseline because they're drinking weekend to weekend, not even a huge amount. There's a level that you could be going up so many levels and having such a better quality of life if, like you say, you just did a three. I think, I've looked into it. I know, look, do a week, whatever you can do is better than nothing. And, there's different trains of thought, but I do believe, and you can look into research, that really 3 months is a very, very good time to do it because of what starts to happen after those 3 months. Like, really, you'll get benefits, but I think the real big benefits come possibly around that 90 to 100 day mark, if I'm really honest. So, but again, look, if someone wants to do a month, I think I'll always say, brilliant, just go for a month, go for 2 weeks, even whatever you can do, just to cut it, just to try and break that cycle
Well,
is good.
if you can't create a decent amount of space in between the substance, and by substance, I mean, we're focused on alcohol here, but it's the same with anything, it's the same with any addictive behavior, you have a problem. Like, if you can't separate and create a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then it's an issue. Like, an addiction is participating in a behavior despite knowing the negative consequences. That's what an addiction is. So if you can't separate or you can't create some space, then it's probably worth looking at, do I actually have a problem here? But that's a whole different conversation because, again, not a lot of people are even aware that it may be a problem until it potentially gets too late.
And that's the big thing, isn't it? I think that the going to the middle laners again, I think that's what he's almost saying is they probably don't even know that there is an issue there. But I think maybe that's a real simple question that I think more people should ask themselves, could I break this for, I don't know, 2 weeks? Could I break it for three? If you can't, then I think you do have to look at that and go, oh, maybe I need to shift and do something here because, and that's not just that. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be caffeine, whatever. If you can't just say, I'm in control of this, I can stop that, no problem. And I think, yeah, but I think people need things sometimes simplifying it. And I believe, you have to get people to make the decision and understand it and want to do things themselves. But I think you have to ask the right questions, right? And by doing that, you can sometimes lead someone to, because you can't tell people what to do.
Well, the question is the answer.
Yeah. So, but although, coming from a teaching background where we were trained that, we have to tell, we tell you what to do and you listen. It's nothing like that now, but it used to be, I'm talking many years ago, right, you listen to, I'm the teacher, but that's a load of rubbish, you want to try and guide people and be more of a facilitator. And I believe that's where you're setting up environments or, questions or where people are making their own decisions, but you're almost guiding them.
Yeah, it's a role of a coach, right?
Yeah, and but I think, now one of the big shifts for me is, with the high performance thing is yeah, trying to make people make more informed decisions around, around the health. And I said, that's why the alcohol question is one that, something you can take away, that has the biggest benefit. I mean, the woo question's another one that comes up a lot for me. And I mean, I'd wonder if there is people out there who wear a whoop and actually drink, because I'd say you're probably wasting your money, to be honest, because surely it just tells you that you just
in the red.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I remember Stephen Bartlett saying something about how he used to drink and he used to go in the red like the day after or something like.
Or a few days, probably. I think, depending on how much you've drunk, you might be a few.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be a few days to get it out of your system. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to. I'd just think, because then you sleep as well. Like you say, it does. Some people say, oh, it really helps me, but you just don't get the quality sleep, do you, on it? You think you might have sort of dropped off but you don't go into the REM or, the restorative sleep. That's, again, that's going to have implications over time, isn't it? If you're the middle laners but you think you're sleeping well.
Yeah, 100%. And these are the people that I actually work with, like the middle laners, so to speak, the high functioning clients that kind of have one foot in, one foot out. They kind of know it's a problem, but they kind of don't as well. Like, it's a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a tightrope that they're kind of walking along. I mean, part of the first phase, the subconscious reprogramming system, is all about getting to the root cause and understanding why. Like, there's going to be a reason why. And even if it is something like alleviating stress from work, that's still a problem. Even if it is ADHD, that's still a problem. Like, my work in the hypnotherapy is all about getting to the root cause of it and understanding so you can change your relationship to the substance. That's the key thing here. It's not about having to take it away, it's about how you use it. That's like the key thing here.
And I learned that massively, the root cause. And obviously, I'll openly talk about, one of the things we sort of discovered together was, very, very low self-worth. And that was that. And we talk about the awareness. I think one thing I would say is the awareness that you get is not always bringing you to good things. It makes you aware of some things that are challenging and i.e. the things that you're drinking for, right? And no, I don't think anyone ever drinks to mask something that's good from their childhood. I don't know, maybe we'll have to see if anyone, I don't think they do. So what they do is they drink because there's something deep rooted, and remember, I mean, this can be, I think most people would have some kind of childhood trauma because obviously coming from a teaching background, we know that, even as early as being in the mother's womb, if the mum's having a bad time, that can impact the child. But especially when you're really young, a child often blames themselves for if other adults are unhappy or there's a bad situation because they don't understand and they just blame themselves. And that can stay with you, But the trouble with that is, if you're then masking and suppressing that constantly with alcohol, pushing it down, you're not dealing with it. In fact, you may not even be aware of it, right? And that's really difficult. And that was what I've come all this way now is saying, actually, it was difficult because on the exterior, some people say, he's a real confident guy, but that can be an act, that can be your mask. Often people say we wear different masks. We have different characters for the situation, the environment we're in. A teacher is that. A teacher, when a teacher crosses the line and goes into that mode, that's not how they are when they're with like their friends and family. They're going in and almost putting on an act to the children or the students. And so that was the thing with me. I had real low self-worth, and that's why I'm super grateful to the work that I've done with you, looking at that and then knowing now categorically that, again, I was one of the ones that alcohol was a solution for me to just, it did relax me. It made me feel a little bit happy. And, the first two or three with the lads or whatever, and the banter's flying around and it's all good fun. But then it just deteriorates after that. It goes one way. It goes one way. Yeah, that's why I'm super grateful. But yeah, the awareness is difficult because, like say, you're probably going to have to face up to some challenges that aren't easy, and some of the stuff you don't want to have to potentially come to terms with. But again, it's that having that short-term challenge for long-term benefits is what I would always be looking at. And anything in life, I believe, is probably short-term. You're going to maybe have to have a challenge. You might have to suffer or sacrifice a little bit, but often the reward longer term is really, really good.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that as well, because I've literally just come off a podcast with another client of mine, and we were talking about how, so I won't go into too much detail, but he's an online coach and he was avoiding a lot of stuff. And we were talking about how the avoidance is more comfortable than facing the problem head on. And if someone wants to live like that, like that's cool. Like, we're not here to judge or anything, but the real growth comes from leaning into the discomfort, leaning into the thing that you're trying to avoid. So a question for someone to ask themselves if they are listening is, what are you avoiding? Simple question. Maybe it's a relationship you don't like. Maybe it's I don't know, a job that you hate. Maybe it's I don't know, whatever. Financial situation that you're in, like wherever that is, right? Everyone's got something that they're avoiding, or a lot of people do anyway. I say 9 times out of 10, a lot of the time, part of the addiction is actually because it takes you out of that. It takes you out of that thing you're trying to avoid, maybe that difficult conversation or whatever. So yeah, I see that a lot, mate. So thank you for sharing about your story as well. And even the work that we've done so far, like, it's completely different. Like, you're completely night and day from the Harry that we first had the session. So good work, mate.
No, thank you, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I find it's great and uplifting, the work that you're doing, and that's why it's a pleasure to come on. And obviously, I've said before, like, I support it 100%. So.
Appreciate it, bro. What's the impact of cutting out the alcohol now? Like, what are the benefits that you've seen? If someone's sat here listening, thinking, I kind of want to give this sobriety thing a go here, What are the benefits?
I mean, they're absolutely huge. I think, you can look at different pillars, but I'd go to family first. Being a good person, it's just so much easier to be kind, be calm. That's something we've worked on a lot as well. Be relaxed. I think be resilient is vital. Facing challenges. Look at it from a business perspective. I'm so much more clear now. I think the clarity that you get, and that would go across the board. Your clarity of whether it's business or decision making, or the clarity is incredible. The clear mindedness, the energy, like what you say with me, like my energy now is incredible. And I think like the energy is actually probably one of the most important ones, because when I've been and you know this, and I'll actively say, I think most people in life are up and down, high and low. But when I reflect back to when I was probably drinking more, and I've had my low times, your energy's low, you really do get back what you give out, in my opinion. So, if your energy's not great and you're low, you will potentially get that back. Whereas on the other hand, like when you've got so much more energy and you're giving that out to people, and you're confident as well, and your self-esteem gets a real boost. And great things happen because you give great energy, and it really does work that you get great energy back. One of my favorite phrases at the minute is I nourish the universe and the universe nourishes me, right? And that's what it's about. It really is about that. You do good things, you invest in yourself. And I think, again, that's a really important one. I say in my businesses, especially the high performance one, is you are your most valuable asset. I say this in everything. You are your most valuable asset. So you really deserve to, you know, limit or not have alcohol, because it's you're ultimately poisoning yourself. It's deep, but for me, life is short. So you really want to squeeze every single droplet out of that you can get. And that's why we go back to that. The middle laners or whatever. It's just that if that's your baseline, maybe you are getting on all right and it's ticking over and things are sort of good on the exterior. But there's another world out there. Literally, is that powerful. There's another world. There's levels that you just can't even comprehend. So yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, and like you talk about health and fitness, like I mean, I'm 46, just turned 46, and I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been in my whole life. Well, how's that? Because we've already talked about from 16 to 29, and then I didn't stop drinking when I was 29. I still drank, and it's only in the last couple of years I've really, really limited it. But I'm the fittest and healthiest I've ever been at 46, and that's mentally and physically as well. So that isn't that incredible? And everyone talks about longevity now, don't they? Again, if you want to try getting massive benefits, try taking alcohol out of the equation. But I'm super grateful. It's not, I don't want to say to people it's easy. It isn't easy. It's not. And I'm not, I'm never preaching to people, but I just love, people to even just have a think, be a bit curious about trying it, because yeah, what you can achieve is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't even have to be for a year at a time. Maybe it's
No.
a few weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months.
Anything, like I said earlier, anything, like I'm not prescribing, because again, like I think when people have their own sort of opinions, or some are experts and they're facts, but what they're forgetting is everyone's individual. And this is what I learned through teaching is like, two different kids, you can't give the same approach. And I'm, giving up a substance or whatever, but like why the next person's using it to me, there may be similarities, but it's going to be different. So don't be saying like what works for me does not work for the next person. You know.
100%.
So that's why I'm not saying do it yet. I'm just saying, if you're curious, just try, because the thing I'd always say, can you do it long enough where you start to get a different level of awareness and you start to look at things and question things, or that thing that you're avoiding, you start to have a look at that and go, actually, yeah, this is interesting. I want to delve a bit deeper into that.
Yeah, well, the thing about everyone being different is that's exactly why my approach is different to most therapies. I'm sure you've been to therapy in the past where it's a very one size fits all approach, but my approach is meeting the client where they're at. Like you said, everyone is different and I tailor my approach to suit the client. Like I'll understand your story and your journey and be like, okay, cool. Well, this approach is probably going to be better suited for Harry, or he's visual, so we're going to do this or this. And it's adaptive. Like you said, not one human is the same. So it's not a one size fits all approach. So when people say to me like, what do you do in your program? Like I'll give them a rough framework or a rough structure, but I do openly say as well, like I'll meet you where you're at. Like if I think session 2 you need X, then I'll give you X. If I don't, then I won't. Like I think where a lot of coaches go wrong is that they can be very one size fits all, and it's like this is my way and this is the only way. But as you know, mate, that doesn't always.
No, and I think there's a lot of people who like, you're out, you see a lot on social media and people are saying it's, it has to be this or it has to be that. And I always question that. Well, until and I'll go back to teaching, but there is similarities. Until you look at that individual in front of you and get to know them and connect with them and say, what does this individual need? Yeah, and what have I got to offer to support that individual with that? I'm always one in that respect to say, well, have I got the tools or the toolkit to help this child or this adult? And if I haven't, I'm keen to learn, and I think that's very important as well. And that's what I look, I love learning. But obviously, as I say, learning for me now, like I've got that absolute thirst back now, and that's because I do retain information now, and I love reading, I love listening to things, and I just love learning. I'm often got many books on the go at any one time, and it's just, yeah, and that comes from that level of that much better level of awareness through just your mental clarity, the way the brain's working. I mean, it's just great, and I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, keep up the good work, bro. If there was one thing that if you came off the podcast and you were like, "Oh, I wish I said that one thing," what would it be?
Good question. I'd just say to people just have a go, have a go, and yeah, maybe just try it out for whatever sort of time frame that they think they can do. I'd say just give it a go, but yeah, try and think of why potentially it would be of use to you. Well, like you said earlier, how does it, what might it help, or what might be better if I did, or like you said, how is this helpful? Maybe that's one. How is this helping? I always think I've not got kids yet, but like you said earlier, ask yourself the question: if you're a parent and you're drinking heavily, how does that help you? How does that help your child? Maybe that's a selfish question. Is there any benefit to a child if you're drinking? There probably isn't. Yeah, I think that'd be the main thing. Is just really try and think about why you might want to do it, and yeah, and then give it a go. That's what I'd say.
Awesome. Cool. Good stuff, bro. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on, and I think a lot of people are going to benefit from your story. And this is just the beginning, mate. Like, I'm excited to be in your corner and to keep seeing you grow and push and develop. And I think your energy is fantastic as well. That's probably a byproduct of the no boost, but
It is.
yeah, I mean, it's great to see the path that you're on, mate. So just keep up the good work.
No, lovely. No, really, really appreciate you having me on. I think just one thing to put on record is it is a long-term thing for me, and I do understand that. I'm in it for the long term because, when you go back to trying to look at certain triggers and things that might be, it's a hard thing to say, but it's often not a quick fix. But I believe, when you do go on that journey and you start to see the benefits, like, I mean, I think we've had two official sessions now, and like the benefits that I'm already reaping from those two, but I'm in it for the long term. So, and the no alcohol is critical to me doing that, because I don't want to even risk undoing any of that great work that I've done so far. I want more of that, and I need to do more of that. So that's another reason why I'm not even going to consider drinking for the foreseeable future, because it's critical that I'm in a good place to go back and to look at those, the low self-worth. Where does that come from? Another one we're going to go on to is, relationship and how it links into finance and all of these things that are challenging, but often messages that we received as a child. But anyway, look, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to come on. Do feel free to, I don't know whether you share people's email or what, but if anyone wants to ask me questions or directly through you, or
Yeah,
is curious, share my, you can share any of my socials or whatever. I'd always want to how, if people do want to ask me questions, I'd love to answer them, as honestly
100%.
as I can. So do feel free to share my details. And yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just
Where
keep
can
up the
people
great
find you,
work.
mate?
Sorry.
I was about to say, where can people find you?
Yeah, just probably Instagram is Harry.White. So yeah, find me on there, or LinkedIn, Harry White. So yeah, have a
Cool.
look on there.
I'll pop your details in the description so people can click on it.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, just keep up the good work, bro.
pleasure. Thank you very
Cool.
much and have a great time.
Thanks,
Keep
Harry.
safe. Bye.